the seagulls. Philosopher. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
And as we say now in my country, they brought the buzz and they left the buzz in front of the goal.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. Never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday night. Welcome along to the Boise Bus, because, yeah, you know what Friday means, everybody. It's time to do a wee bit of time travelling. So, yes, we will be delving into the Celtic archives tonight. It's one of those more open forum type shows that we do on Bustalgia. We're going to be jumping around from one time period to another. No set season tonight, no specific games we're looking at, not one specific player. We're looking at a multitude of players, or when you look at what these guys did in a Celtic shirt, would they even be classed as players? Because some of them are pretty bad. We're gluttons for punishment here on the Boise Bus on Bustalgia, and tonight we're doing the Flattered to Deceive episode, one where we're looking at players who came in, maybe we paid a bit of money by Celtic standards, maybe they came in with a bit of pedigree, and it's just not worked for one reason or another. But it's not going to be 2 hours of us just sitting here going, he was crap. We're going to look at some other angles with it. Were we too quick to judge some of these players? Could they have worked in a different managerial system? How excited we were about some of these guys coming in, because there was definitely a few on the list that I've got here where I was like, I can't wait to see this guy. And then maybe we'll ask the question of, when did the reality sink in that this guy is bad? I need to just accept it and take it on the chin, as Tony Mowbray would do. But yeah, we'll be doing plenty of that tonight. But as you can see, tonight's time traveling team, Russell's not with us tonight, but David Logue, a very, very suitable substitution, has come in. The substitutes board's gone up, Russell's gone off, and on comes Mr. Sunday Blair himself, David Logue. How are you doing, mate? Napoli shot as well, very topical. Champions of Italy for the first time since 1990.
I know, what can I say? I go to Italy once, buy a Napoli shirt, and the rest is history. I've never looked back since I became a fan. I've always been a fan of Napoli. So.
Good. I must say, the Maradona connection alone, it's good to see them finally get a long overdue title, and also Argentina win the World Cup as well recently. It's almost like Maradona still pulling the strings from somewhere. It's almost like
Maradona on the back of the shirt as well. So it's
meant to be. Stars have aligned perfectly. They have indeed. And down at the bottom there, as you can see, the wise man of the bus is here tonight. Canada's favourite Tim, everybody. It is Liam Greenlaw. How you doing, Liam? And he's muted. That's a good start. I'll unmute you, Liam. There you go, mate.
There you go.
Sorted.
Sorted, aye.
Yep,
Right.
sorted now, mate. Aye.
Aye, good. How you doing, David? How you doing, Phil? Yeah, looking forward to another trip on the bus. Looking at some of the ones that were supposed to be good, nearly good. Don't know what happened. You know, how did we spend that money? Where did it go? I think these ones are funs as well. I love doing the seasons and all that, but when you get individual players, that's when the bus comes alive. Everybody's got an opinion, right?
Oh, yeah, it's very, very subjective tonight. Because, say, there may be a player that we get on to talking about tonight in the chat. You may go, hey, he wasn't that bad at all. By all means, state your case. No problem at all. You know, that's what we're all about here on the bus. You know, all about opinions. So, with all that being said, I'll get all that good stuff out of the way. So, of course, if you're new to the bus and you've only just discovered us, by all means, hit that subscribe button. Help us out massively. I think it's up to 3,000, nearly 3,600 we're getting up to now. So not too bad by all accounts for this humble little podcast. Also, hit the like button. Helps us again with the old algorithm on YouTube. Puts us in more suggested videos for especially Celtic fans. You know, gets the name of the Boise Bus out there. Obviously, get involved in the comments tonight. So it's more of an open forum one thing. So by all means, there will be points where we say, you know, give us some suggestions, some absolute shockers that we've had down the years. So by all means, throw the names in there. And of course, tonight I have put a wee poll in there. I've homed in on one position in particular because over the last 15 years, Celtic have made a pretty bad habit of spending roughly 1 to 3 million a pop on random strikers from all over the place that don't necessarily work out. So basically, I've just asked like who gets the vote as the worst. I've picked Bio, Amido Balde, and Mo Bangura, and then the fourth option is other. By all means, put it in the comments. But yeah, there's that's a segment we'll get on to tonight. This merry-go-round of strikers that we seem to go through, where we just throw a random 2 million bid out there and bring in some striker, and yeah, it just doesn't seem to work. So that's the 3 that I've picked from there. So by all means, get involved in the vote, and of course, share the link of the Boise Bus on any social media platforms that you wish. And of course, we do have a new Twitter account we've been plugging recently, so at Boise Bus, you'll see us on there as well. Follow that, and also keep up to date when shows are going live and so forth. And finally, in regards to piesports.com, head over there, our great sponsor, and get your order in, and of course, let them know that the bus sent you by using the code BUS1888. Get yourself a very tasty 12.5% off on that one. And with that being said, would you like some trivia, guys? I mean, David Logs ran away from the trivia already, so we're off to a good start there, Liam. But I've got a wee bit of trivia for you to start this one tonight. I'll wait till David returns. While I'm doing that, I'll also plug the Boise Bus membership. So if you wish to become a Boise Bus member for a mere $1.99 a month, none of our content will ever be behind the paywall. At any point, it's all free, but it just obviously helps the bus out. So you can be just like Patrick McLaughlin, like Kieran McFadden, like Stephen Murdoch, like Kevin 14, like 420 somewhere. Yes, it certainly is. Who else have we got scrolling up here? Like Scott Cameron. And let's see if I find another name that I've not shouted out yet. Oh, well, topical. Speaking of memberships, you could be just like Michael Cairns, and you could become a YouTube member just like he has done. So thank you very much, Michael. We massively appreciate it. And of course, the other one that Boise always likes to give me flag for is me. He always laughs whenever he's like, Phil, you do still paying for a membership, but the Boise Bus channel itself has a membership as well. So I don't even know how that came about. I have no idea. But yeah, Boise, whenever Boise posts, there's a little star next to it as well. So I have no idea how that even happened. But with that being said, I'll give you the trivia just now, Liam, seeing as David's done a report on us. So basically, there are 5 answers tonight with one, and it's all around, again, forwards, strikers again. So can you name any Celtic striker who's won a golden boot in any of England's top 4 divisions since the Premier League era began? So since 1992-93 to present day, there are 5 former Celtic players. We might mention some of them tonight, and some of them may surprise you, who have won a golden boot in England's top 4 divisions. So that's not just the Premier League, that's all 4 of them. So yeah, 5 strikers that have achieved a golden boot since 92-93. And I say, some of the names may come up tonight, so just keep your ear to the ground on that one. So yeah, I think the best place we can start here when we're going to look at different players is you came with a great suggestion last night, Liam, after we did the TNF and we're talking about this show. We may as well start at the back. It's always a good place to look at the goalkeepers. And before we address the Greek tragedy that we're going to have to get onto in regards to goalkeepers, you came up with an excellent one, Liam, that you wanted to throw out, because obviously on Bustalgia, especially when Russell's on, Martin O'Neill, we talked about Martin O'Neill, how great that era was and so on. The squad at that time, the success, just the quality of the team, but there was always one area that Martin had a few problems with, and it was goalkeeper, where he had a bit of a blind spot. But there was one goalkeeper in particular, because look at the goalkeepers that Martin O'Neill had. Like, he inherited Jonathan Gould, who came in as he was a Bradford City second string goalkeeper, so you weren't expecting much for Gould, but he turned himself into a half decent keeper for us. Robert Douglas, were we really expecting much from Robert Douglas from Dundee? Not really. But one guy who he did bring in was obviously somebody who had a bit of Premier League and international football pedigree, being Sweden's international goalkeeper. And it's safe to say, Liam, it didn't work out too well. Magnus Hedman, a good place to start, my friend. So take it away, sir.
I mean, we thought, you'd looked at the luck that we'd had with Swedes. I thought we'd won a watch. When we were getting Hedman, this is a guy that had already performed in England. He was a Swedish international keeper, so you knew he probably had a relationship with Larsson and Albian, so he knew about Celtic. He knew what the pressures were coming here. And I thought, and he just looked at, when you seen the highlight reels of him before he came to us, he just looked commanding. He was athletic, and he had a bit of that, no nastiness, but like bravery that, goalkeepers need, especially in the SPL. And I thought it was just all coming together. Everything on paper said that was the right signing, that was a goalkeeper that was going to come, he was going to make that jersey his own, and be the guy between the sticks for Celtic for a long, long time.
Without doubt, aye. I was the exact same. I mean, the game that obviously stands out, and it probably gives many fans nightmares of a certain vintage, is the Champions League game against Bayern Munich, where we had just freshly come off of getting to the UEFA Cup final in 2003. Around we're back in the Champions League in the 03-04 season. We start the campaign with a game away to Bayern Munich, because, of course, we're always going to start with a super hard game in the Champions League, but we're away to Munich. And we actually take the lead in that game. Alan Thompson puts us ahead in the second half, and it looks like, as the game's going on, we might actually do this here, especially after the heroics we've just shown the season before, where we've got all the way to the UEFA Cup final, beating the likes of Liverpool, Celta Vigo, Blackburn along the way. Might actually take Bayern Munich as a scalp here. And of course, this is a point in time where away wins in the Champions League were definitely not something Celtic were accustomed to. And we're about, I think it was like 15 minutes to go. And was it Roy Mackay, I believe, was the striker, Liam, Dutch striker, who actually became the assistant manager at Rangers in recent times under Gio. He just I don't even know if it was a shot. It was more like a sort of a ball into the box, just a sort of like cross type thing, and he's bounced right in front of Hedman, and he's completely misjudged it, and it's just went right over him. And then we lose another goal not long after, and it was like, you thought, as you say, Hedman was going to be the guy to come in, with the pedigree he's got, playing the Premier League, and then, being Sweden's international goalkeeper, and then that to happen is just like, oh, man, was it just rotten Celtic luck at that point? You begin to ask yourself, well, man, we just have the worst luck. I've said many times, we concede some of the worst goals ever in European football. It's not just Celtic bias. We just seem to have some terrible luck. But yeah, that one was one of those moments where I can't believe he's done that, but it just bounced right in front of him, and he totally misjudged it. And it wasn't even that powerful a shot. There wasn't even that much whip on it, if I remember right as well, Liam. But your heart just sunk at that point, didn't it? Like, oh no.
It was a grass pitch as well. I mean, you see that stuff happening when we play in some of these dodgy places, in like Kazakhstan or places like that have the artificial pitches. We've done some of them, and so you could understand how a goalie could get caught out like that. But yeah, playing against Bayern Munich in their stadium, I mean, it's the best world probably. It's hosted World Cup finals, so yeah, I don't, and so that's when the first cracks start to appear, right? And so then I've not got the same confidence in him anymore now, and you can see that, and it just sort of, just like a virus, it just takes root, and then goes through to I think, what did we get, like 1.5 seasons out of him?
Oh, let me think, because David Marshall comes in by the end of the
Aye.
season. He comes through the youth team, has that great game against Barca. He ends the season, and then even in the next season, Marshall starts this season as goalkeeper, and Rob Douglas finds his way back in by the end of the season. So again, Martin and Eyal with goalkeepers. It's always a bit of a blind spot. It's a strange one. David, see for yourself, do you remember the Magnus Hedman and Martin and Eyal in that, or is that a bit...
I didn't see much of him. He played a handful of times, about 30 games or something.
Aye.
I mean, that guy had 58 caps for Sweden. Like you said, his pedigree was massive. But it's just one of those things. It's just some players don't fit certain teams, and it might have just been one of those situations.
Yeah,
we've talked about it loads. Like the weight of Celtic's jersey weighs down on some players a lot more than others, and only some can handle it, even at international levels of goalkeepers like him. Premier League teams, like, where did we sign him for? I just looked at his history there. We got him from Coventry.
Coventry
to Celtic. That's a big, It's just
a team that would have been under pressure a lot. When you think about it, Coventry were always relegation fodder down in the Premier League at that point. But yeah, he's not been accustomed. Well, I mean, playing for Celtic, he would have been, having games where he wouldn't have much to do. But it's not just the Bayern Munich game. There was the Lyon game as well, where everyone remembers the Bobo Balde, the handball near the end that obviously gave away a penalty and basically knocked us out the Champions League that year. But also, there was one of the goals that we lost that night where he was culpable, where he just it's a free kick from Juninho. And it just basically goes right through him, essentially. I mean, Juninho was an incredible free kick taker, the Brazilian midfielder that played for Lyon. But yeah, Hedman just did not get off to the best of starts. I say at a time when you're rotating goalkeepers around, you can't really decide on your number one. I say it's not a good look, and it's not good for the confidence of the goalkeeper. And Martin and Eyal at that point in time, he brought in Broto as well, I think, the season before, who actually turned out not a bad wee keeper, to be fair. But when Hedman came in, it was like, right, he is a guy that is going to basically become our number one. That's the piece of the puzzle that's missing. Because after losing the UEFA Cup final in Seville, many fans were always quick to blame Rob Douglas for the goals that we lost. And said, well, if we just had a good goalkeeper in, we probably would have won the UEFA Cup. So you thought that was going to be it, but sadly, it wasn't to be. But bringing it to more recent times, and I said before we spoke about Hedman there, David, the Greek tragedy, we need to address this one. Vasilios Barkas, very topical at the moment, because Celtic just this week have set up stories out there that they want $4.5 million for Mr. Barkas after his loan spell with Utrecht. Do you think we're going to get $4.5 million for him? Is there a future for Barkas at all?
I'd be surprised if we only lost 500k on a guy that has no hands.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
I mean, like I just said, like some players just don't fit certain clubs. He had a decent reputation before we signed him. Greek international number one goalkeeper playing for AEK Athens. We signed him from for $5 million. As far as I'm aware, he's had a very good season for his, in the Eredivisie for who did he say? Is it Utrecht as well?
He's at Utrecht now. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, they want him. They just can't afford them.
Yeah. Okay.
So what does that say? Do you want to take the risk and try and get $4.5 million for a player that we might not be able to sell, or do you sell it to a team that will buy him? Just what can you afford? Because I think Celtic should just cut the losses with him.
Same.
Is it harsh to say that he doesn't deserve another shot? Well, after these comments that he made while still being on Celtic's books about Celtic, I don't think he's ever got a way back into Ange's plans. So, I mean, what a curious case. I mean, there's a lot, we've discussed it in live before. Like, there's been a lot of, I don't want to say excuses for him, but coming to a new country during COVID, living in a hotel, can't socialise with the players after training. It was a weird season for everybody, but especially for guys, foreign guys coming and trying to settle into a new country, a new team.
Yeah,
there's a lot of, but
Kieran's asking here, what did he say? Was it no something along the lines of he wouldn't recommend to any of his...
Yeah, he wouldn't recommend anybody becoming a goalkeeper at Celtic or something like that. It was, I mean, I can look up the quotes now. Well, you want to... Well, Liam says his bit on old Barky.
Yeah, old Barkas. Well, what David said there, you've got to always look at that whole... He came in during that era, the COVID era, the isolation era and so on, and living in hotels. Well, in fact, it feels like that affected all of our players we signed in that window, and that's a season that I've not got around to yet on Bustalgia, but it will be somewhere down the pipeline, don't you worry. But yeah, Barkas, obviously, it was with him being obviously the last line of defence, mistakes are going to show up even more for him, even though we remember Shane Duffy and stuff like that's in front of him, so that was a problem in itself. But I don't know if you remember this, but my first moment of... on you go, David. On you go, mate.
Sorry, I've just got the quote here just while it's fresh here. He says, I regretted that decision because things didn't turn out the way I thought they would, but you can't know beforehand. What saddens me is that some money was spent on me, sure was, and I didn't feel the investment. I didn't feel that I was a very important part of the team. He then goes on to say, I wouldn't recommend a goalkeeper to come here. Celtic is a huge club, but I wouldn't recommend a goalkeeper to come here.
Oh, well, that's not good for us because you need a goalkeeper. It's bad to come on Vasilius.
Ask Joe Hart. Maybe concentrate on what Joe Hart says about being a goalkeeper at Celtic than than Barkas. But that's what he said. So, sorry, on you continue.
No, that's fair enough. I knew the comment was something along the lines of I wouldn't recommend that they come to Celtic. But Liam, what about yourself with Barkas? How do you feel about him? Do you feel any sympathy for him? Do you just hope that what David's saying there, where you've got a team who are interested, but evidently don't want to pay $4.5 million. Don't necessarily blame them on that. We just need to cut our losses on that one, don't we?
I'd seen Barkas before he played for Celtic. So when I've supported my Bulgarian team, Lokomotiv, they've got two other teams that you are now required to follow as well. Just like Celtic and St. Pauli sort of thing, right? The one is Napoli, David. And then the other one is AEK Athens. And so I'd seen Barkas played for them, and I always thought he looked really good. And so, no tons of details. I've seen him 3 or 4 times playing there just in the pub. And I thought, okay, Greek international is coming. I thought that was a brilliant piece of business for us. What I like as well, and this is why I'm surprised he's not fit into Ange's game plan, is he was always talking about how good he was with the ball, that sometimes when he was practicing with the Greek national team, he would play at left back. He liked to take playing against internationals at left back, on the field and that as well to get a run. And you think that somebody that's got that good ball control and that would be perfect for Ange's type game. I don't know. I think what David said earlier about the environment that he came into was like negative, and you've seen a lot of players, careers in that season, and that, just like you talk about, like Neil Lennon talks about a lot of the big clubs taking dips, a lot of big players took dips as well. And I can imagine as well him coming to Glasgow and that being like a very cold and damp place to sit in a hotel at some point, and you're not knows what's going around. And if you know anything between the weather in Scotland and Greece, it's a wee bit different, and it can make you a wee bit depressed and stuff like that as well, especially if your family and that. And, the quotes it takes out of context, I don't know, anytime I hear a foreign player quoted and it's anywhere negative, I always take it with a grain of salt as well. There's a huge difference in words, like recommend and things like that as well. My wife speaks with a heavy accent and, she can come across quite harsh and stuff at times because, again, she's looking for the direct word that makes sense and not the word that makes everybody feel good.
Yeah.
And so, I'd like to see him come back. I always think, I don't know, is there, because Ange, the Greek connection, him and Ange, do we have a diamond in the rough still there? Do we still have that extra card to play? Barkas comes back and becomes a hero. I mean, it's a great storyline.
Yeah, well, all the sort of statisticians out there obviously tell us about Barkas being that goalkeeper that's probably better with his feet than he is at keeping the ball out of the net. And you think, well, Ange does like a goalkeeper that will be able to play out from the back. That's what he's looking for. But keep in mind, remember he gave him the first competitive game that Ange played was against Michelin in that Champions League qualifier. And it was like any chance that he had at that point was just it was gone. That goal that we lost that night, that free kick from out wide. Sviatchenko goes over and tells the guy taking the free kick, whispers something to him, like sort of like this is where to aim it. And bending it in from out there, Barkas just basically goes right through him again. Then there was that friendly against West Ham that they played. I know
his positioning was just maybe he thought he was playing left back, Liam.
Well, remember the goalie gloves he brought out that day as well. They were these weird-looking goalie gloves that were just all white, but they had that I think the fingers were all dipped red, and it was weird-looking gloves. And it's funny, I'd never seen anybody wear them since, because that time against Midland, I mean, they must be invisible or something, or just made a crazy foam or something like that.
Because they like that, Liam, when they like that, when it was like ball-shaped hole in between them when you put them together.
Aye.
Maybe that red was his blood stains off the nails, just the ball just constantly flying past his fingernails.
It was astounding. And remember there was
signal for help. Come and help us.
Would you remember during the COVID season, there was an incident when we played Milan in the Europa League game and Shane Duffy injured him, collided with him at a slide. He went and slid for the ball. Shane Duffy slid into him and injured Barkas. And then what we had after that was a rotation where Scott Bain got a few games and Connor Hazard got in for a few games and Barkas was back. Then Lennon did that bizarre press conference where he said, no, Barkas is my number one. And it was like the goalkeeper situation at that point was just all over the place. But hey, everything was a mess at that point in time at the Celtic team. It was just like one tragedy after another.
So here's a question, right? So we know how together this current Celtic squad is, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're such a tight-knit group. If anyone makes any mistakes, there's a clear message. Don't worry about it. The way we play, we're going to make mistakes. It's how we react. And, you know, now when you look at that team that Barkas came to, where it was almost everyone's pointing a finger at each other. It's your fault. It's like, what were you doing there? Now, remember, he's not getting to socialise after. He's going to go straight back to the hotel room. In his head, they're all blaming me. The papers are all blaming me. The players are also at their home going, what the fuck's this Barkas all about? Like, what's this guy? But there's been no socialising, no get-togetherness in that team. Now, if we were to give Barkas the benefit of the doubt and he did come back and he was a part of this tight-knit group, could that would that be a factor in turning his career around at Celtic? Being part of a group like we've got now that, you know, nothing can really penetrate this team when it comes to negativity. We just dust ourselves off and we go again. Now, could that play a massive factor if we were to give him another go, or is it just send him off into the sunset and thanks for nothing?
Again, it's one of these hypothetical situations. I just don't know until it happens. If it happens, I say it sounds good. It sounds plausible. Where you think, well, yeah, you're right. What you said there, David. We have got an attitude of, oh, we've lost a goal. Don't worry, we'll be fine. You know, this team never stops. We just keep plodding away. The fans have got that belief as well. I've been in many games this season where we've lost a goal, and you still get that feeling that it's going to be fine. We'll find a way to get through this. I wonder. I mean, it's one of those, you know. To see it in action, it would be interesting to see. But I just find it mad that, you know, if they're asking for that much and they know that team can't pay it, it's like, I don't know. Is he going to end up back at Celtic in the summer and be a squad and in the squad at least? Who knows? But
is he a worse backup keeper than Bain?
Well,
or Seacrest?
Well, Seacrest we just don't know enough about. We saw him play twice.
You know, yeah, that's my point. It's like, but
it's food for thought, that one.
You don't want a £4.5 million, if that's what Celtic value him at. Sitting on a bench. But then again, if we're now looking at we want to be signing players at a far superior price tag, then maybe we do need £4.5 million goalkeeper sitting on a bench for us.
Maybe, but he's. See, the moment with Barkas is a strange one. You just don't know at the moment what's going to happen. Because I mean, I do feel that the goalkeeper position is something we're probably going to need to look at very soon. But who knows? I say most of these players have probably been loaned out because Celtic are trying to get them in the shop window. By all accounts, it seems like he's had quite a decent season in Holland. So if Celtic can get a suitor to come along maybe a case of what you said, David. They just decide to cut their losses and just just take whatever Utrecht can give them, essentially. Because if they're keen to take them, then might as well just capitalise on that. But it would be interesting to see if it did happen, how it would work out. Because, you've got to take into account how rotten it must have been for him and everyone that season, just with what was going on in the world and being a professional footballer in such a surreal environment, being isolated and so on, and having to stay in hotel rooms and no camaraderie really, and as you rightly say, a very toxic atmosphere in that team. Everyone wanted to blame each other. So these are all factors that we need to take into consideration. Or of course, if always fails, Liam, we can do what Francis says in the comments there. Maybe he can play left back. He can replace Greg Taylor at left back in the Champions League next season. So he's apparently can play left back. But yeah, maybe we could do that one. But we'll see what happens in the summer with Vasilius Barkas. At the moment, he is still a Celtic player. We'll see how it goes. But so far in the time he has played with us, it's not went too well. And as I said earlier on, there was that moment where I think it was Ferencváros when he knocked us out in the Champions League qualifier and he lost a really shocking goal that night. I think it deflects off El Hamid, the Israeli right back that we had, where they broke on the counter. And it sort of like deflects off El Hamid on the way and goes through like Barkas's legs. And that was the first like major mistake I can remember. And it was one of those, I didn't want to accept it. I was like, no, that's no on him. That's no his fault. It's one of the, like, I can't accept it. We just paid $5 million for a goalkeeper and that's just happened. But yeah, that's the case with many of these players. You get a bit excited and they come in. The price tag sometimes sways you. And then you've just got to sometimes just take it on the chin and go, you know what? It's actually not going to work there. Now, another player I wanted to bring up, we'll just jump around to different positions, but I thought goalkeeper a good place to start. But of course, when it comes to these players coming in, it may be a case of injury is just rife with these guys and you never really get to see the best of them. And before you know it, they've been there for a couple of years and only played a handful of games and off they go. And of course, a guy who epitomizes the sick note tag is one Dutch midfielder, Dirk Berichter, who was signed in 2013 by Neil Lennon from Ajax for, I believe, 2.5 to 3 million.
It's 3 million, I think, was it not? You're right, yeah.
Now, of course, this is in the social media day and age, 2013. This is when Twitter and Facebook and that started to really gain momentum. There's lots of access to YouTube videos and blogs and so on. And I do remember vividly when we signed Berichter, there was blogs out there with like Dutch football experts saying that Ajax, as a club rated them and the fans did like him, but they all said the same thing. He's so injury prone. It's almost like, imagine if there was something out there to warn us ahead of time with this one, Liam. And it turned out to be 100% the truth because it was literally 20 minutes into his debut against Ross County. And what a debut it was. He actually looked a player in the 20 minutes. It was phenomenal. He goes down with an injury and he's out for months after that. And when he does come back into the team, he's in, then he's back out again with another injury. I think in terms of goals, he probably scored less than 5 goals his entire time at Celtic.
He scored once, mate.
Once.
In 16 appearances.
Jesus, 16. My God, yeah. He was, there was so much hope from that debut, Liam, if you remember it. But yeah, as I say, we were warned in advance. There was things out there on the internet that told us Berichter, sick note, and it turned out to be the case.
I've made it a cheese. I don't know what we. I mean, he just crumbled at every opportunity, any physicality, and just I don't know. Some players, like you look at, you heard about CCV playing through injury. Some players can play through injury, and then there's other.
Yeah.
There's one wee niggle shuts down their entire body, and for some reason they can't get over it or can't get through the psychological aspect of it and play through a pain barrier, or they think they're going to get hurt more or whatever. Do you know what he does now?
No, I do not. Enlighten me.
He's a personal fitness trainer.
No.
In
the
Holland.
irony right now. What?
Him being some sort of personal trainer and that, and I'm thinking, well, he knows his way around the treatment room. He will definitely know what all the gear does. But,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But shocking, and some guy get into football because they're good at athletics and they manage to get through and pick up a bunch of skills and all that. But they're primarily athletes. They're no football players, And they got a good engine on them, and and they can outlast a lot of people. And then it shows up later when it comes to stuff like playing for football for the absolute, just the joy or the necessity or the need to go out there and impose yourself in your style and have that drive. And some of them just don't have it. The slightest thing is just going, and he's one of the guys. Aye.
Oh, he was. I say the future looks so bright. So I was excited again. Signing a £3 million signing from Ajax. A club that's got a reputation, having an eye for a player. Oh, this is going to be good. But I say there was stories out there. There was things on the internet that were easily accessible about he's got a horrible injury record, and it turned out to be true. Literally 20 minutes into that Ross County game. But I don't know if you remember this, David. See, after a year at Celtic, obviously Neil Lennon leaves and Ronnie Dyler comes in. Dirk Victor strangely had a little reprieve early on in Ronnie Dyler's term, and then he completely balls it up because we played St Johnstone in the opening day of the 2014-15 season up at McDermott, and this is the era of the compliance officer. This is before VAR. This is the compliance officer era. And one of the goals we scored was a penalty that night where he takes an absolutely abysmal dive to win the penalty, and he got punished afterwards from the compliance officer with a suspension. And I don't think Ronnie Dyler liked that too much. But in pre-season, it looked like he was getting his fitness back. And of course, Ronnie was known for being all about fitness. Maybe Ronnie can actually turn this guy around. So he starts the season, he plays against St Johnstone in that game, takes a horrific dive, cops a ban, and he was not seen again until I think he pops up in a few pre-season games the next year. But he's pretty much gone after that. He barely plays. But there was a wee bit of a chance we thought just maybe we're going to see the best of Dirk Victor now under Ronnie, but it wasn't even be there. He was completely out, gone. Do you what's your memories of the Victor? Were you excited by $3 million from Ajax, a winger? Sounds like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I mean, you're signing anybody from Ajax, like say a winger, then you're going to be excited. I'm just looking at his stats there. He played 78 games for Ajax's main first team, and he got 19 goals and 13 assists in that time. So you can see why he was maybe around about the 3 million mark and not the 30 million mark coming for Ajax. And he helped them win the title in 2 consecutive seasons. So you are expecting a lot. But obviously, at the time, you've not heard the whole sick note thing until he signed, and then he went. When I think it must be when he left Celtic, he actually blamed Celtic's medical staff for misdiagnosing and mistreating his ankle problem. So he blames Celtic for his injuries, despite having the nickname sick note before he arrived. So go figure.
Yeah, well, one.
Yeah, I remember I was actually at the game where he came on at halftime and was introduced to the fans, and everyone around was like, "Oh, this is this Dutch lad. This guy's going to be absolutely, brilliant for us, And of course, as they always are, these random £3 million forwards, they never really live up to the hype. But sick note was pretty much what it says in the tin, really.
Yeah, he pretty much was that. Although, on the topic of injured players, I think we need to now talk about the ballad of one Rafael Scheidt, as I believe it's pronounced, or Scheidt, depending. Scheidt by name, Scheidt by nature, because, yes, Rafael was a John Barnes signing in 99-2000 season. And I think the story goes, Liam, something along the lines of it was a bit of foul play by an agent here. There was like a thing going on in Brazilian football where they were getting players like just a cap for Brazil, so you can basically push their value up. Because when you hear the words Brazilian international, instantly you're going to go, you have my attention, I'm intrigued. Tell me more, sir. When they talk about it, when you put that nationality and tell them they've got caps for them, you're like, oh right, this guy must be good. But yeah, the story was he had one cap for Brazil, German, obviously having a German lineage as well with the name Scheidt. But yeah, he did get one cap for them. He was a Gremio player, and Celtic took the plunge on him for just a mere, I believe, around £5 million at the time in 99-2000, which was no mean feat for Celtic at that point in time. And I believe he came in, maybe played 1 or 2 games, and then was out with appendicitis. And by the time he came back, well, I think we made up the mind that he wasn't that good anyway. And then Martin O'Neill comes in, and Martin O'Neill pretty much ran the rule over him and was like, nah, you're not going to make it here. But it's just like one of these things where you look at the name and you're like, this is like a comedy sketch, a really bad comedy sketch because it's at our expense. It's like, of all the names to be attached to this guy, it's like, I just summed them up perfectly. But Liam, what's your memories of when, well, like a Brazilian international centre-back, did you see through it right away where you're going, well, actually, he's only got 1 cap for Brazil? Or were you just like, oh, yes, a Brazilian international, here we go?
Phil, I'm embarrassed. As someone that works in the dark arts and does that sort of advertising tricks and things like that of Brazilian international, is coming to sign. I fell for it as well. I'm thinking, okay, he's got a cap for Brazil. It's got to be good. And you can see how that lie just works because everybody's just said, well, Brazil was, it wasn't just winning World Cups and all that. They were winning like the Copa del Rey. Cups and all that sort of stuff. That was a team of like Brazilian superstars. They were just churning them out, and they were all over Europe. And there's new names happening and landing in Italy and France and Spain, England, all Germany, all over the place, and we're all like tearing it up. And I thought, okay, right, that's really. First of all, I thought it was very, very inspiring and creative from the club to actually be, wow, signing a guy for Brazil. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then the more you learn about it and the more you heard what was going on, and I think it was Luxembourgo or something, it was the guy at the time, and they were handing out caps to help agents, to put a better, it puts a nice, it's almost like a new and improved sticker you get to put on something that's old and familiar. Just what a disappointment that was, But I've had a few Brazilian disappointments with Celtic. We don't seem to work that much well. And the way it's going right now with the Argentinian market, I think we need to figure out how we're going to get stronger in that market, both identifying players and then figure out how to convert them into our system so that they show up and they at least resemble something from their highlight reel.
Oh, without a shadow of doubt, is also as Kieran McFadden here. Scheidt was so bad that Martin O'Neill took his shot number. Martin O'Neill always had 31 on his Celtic tracksuit at training and stuff like that. And squad number 31 was the bold Rafael Scheidt. Apparently here the B is coming in to tell us that the cap he got was in one of those weird friendlies where it's a club team against a country that they do from time to time. It was Barcelona v Brazil in 1999, and that's where Rafael Scheidt got his one and only cap. Jeez, man, that's
Did Barnes not watch him, just clips him off at ESPN or something, and that's the only reason he knew anything about him?
It wouldn't surprise me.
Like you never seen him play in the flesh. Apparently, it was just like clips. I think somebody also was put in the chat there as well about VHS tapes. I'd read that it was like ESPN he'd seen him on. Was he playing in the States at one point, or was it just, or would it?
When we signed him, he was playing for Grêmio in Brazil. They're one of the bigger and better teams in the Brazilian league. But yeah, see that one cap just being attached to his name instantly pushes that value up a little bit. But yeah, $5 million be paid for him.
Amazingly, Kieran McFadden, sorry. There you go.
There it is.
He said it's a VHS tips, aye.
His best bits.
His best bits. Tiny shoelaces and...
Oh, God. Yeah, it was one of those, like, I say, when you heard the name at the time, it was just like, is this a joke? Like, is this some sort of, like, parody? I can remember at the time Alan McInally was a Scott Sport, I think he was still working for at that point in ITV, and he even made a bit of a quip out of it where he's like, yeah, Celtic being linked with Rafael Scheidt, and that's the only time I'll get to see that on national TV. But yeah, it's true, because you hear the name and you're like, just on the name alone, you're like, I don't want us to sign this guy just because of that name. It's got a bad omen around it right away, and it turned out to be the truth. It was an absolutely ridiculous deal. We forked out all that money. And I'm going to assume that when he did leave, we probably didn't get any money back for him. It was probably a case of just cancel his contract and get him off our books as quickly as possible. But Rafael Scheidt, the bold Rafael. But around about that time as well, even though we forked out $5 million, he wasn't actually the record signing at that point, because earlier in the season, Liam would signed Eyal Berkovic from West Ham for $5.75 million, close to $6 million we signed him, and he was the record transfer until Chris Sutton joined a year later. But Berkovic is one of those ones that did come in with a bit of pedigree, because in the Premier League he'd been playing for West Ham, looked like a really good player, and at that point in time, you know, the Scottish football was still getting a good deal from Sky. Celtic and Rangers were still spending big money on players. They could attract players from England in the early 2000s for big bucks, and that at that time was a big money transfer. But Berkovic came in, and from what I remember, he started really well and very, very quickly faded. It seemed like when the fight was really kicking in that season, and we were struggling after a while that season, especially once Larsson went down injured. We did the John Barnes season a few weeks back. Berkovic just didn't have the fight for it, did he? And it probably didn't help as well, Liam, when John Hartson turned up not too long after at Celtic, and even took his squad number as well, just for added insult.
When part of your highlight reel is John Hartson kicking you in the head, and then they bring John Hartson to the team and training, and then they bring John Hartson to the team. I would have just like Neil just take my squad number, or Willis Hartson did that as well, but I don't have to kick me in the head, mate. Disappointing, right? I mean, again, I didn't have that high expectations. I mean, I remember him just being a flash in the pan. You know, like a couple of months, I remember hearing his name doing an EPL and all that, but wasn't a big consistent guy. Wasn't a guy that showed up in the international scene where all of Israel's beating Italy or something because somebody's had like an absolute, brilliant game of that. And when we got him, it was like, it was a lot of money, but we were starting to see the overinflation of the prices for players coming from England at that point, and not looking Sutton for what we got at that time. But yeah, I thought he was okay when he came, and then he didn't impress me much. I looked good in the first couple of games. Thought, okay, maybe he's on a player here, but sometimes you can just tell with players with body language and stuff, and how with the other players when teammates score goals or they score goals, and some players just don't look engaged. You look at our team now and where it is when scores, everybody's in there and all that, and I don't know, he just didn't look like perhaps happy playing his football,
Well, good thing you mentioned about when when we score and everyone's in about celebrations, because a celebration is something that always sticks out for me with Berkovic. And I don't know if you've ever seen this clip, David, but there's a goal that Berkovic scored in the second half of that season when things had pretty much fell apart, and he runs by the Lord Jock Stein stand giving all that to the Celtic fans, and it was like, well, you've pretty much just signed your death wish, mate. The fans must have been getting on his back or the team's back that night, and he went and scored a goal and was at to them all. Like, I get it up, yes, and it was like, yeah, you've pretty much told us everything. When a player does that, there's no much coming back, is there?
I think his attitude and demeanour was one of his bigger letdowns for the club, isn't it? I think that sealed the deal, especially if you're going to get up you to the Celtic, to your own fans, especially Celtic fans, and you've just signed your own death wish. You've handed yourself, you've picked up the shovel and started digging. So you had a good start. They just scored 2 goals in that 4-2 defeat, and then
he did the Chicken Tonight celebration with Ian Wright, because Ian Wright was doing that. That was his big advertiser thing at the time. Chicken Tonight they did the celebration, and then just looked total mugs when we get gubbed in that game. But we have talked about that one. Liam will remember this. This is the one when Albert's knees Lambert in the face and they get a penalty. So, I mean, we were going in 2-1 at half-time in that game until that penalty got given, and it just changed the total dynamic of the game. But yeah, that was, you're right, he did score twice in that game. One of them was a really nice finish as well. He played nicely 1-2 and then just sort of bent it round the goalkeeper into the far corner. But he did look like a good player, and as people are saying in the chat, there's a lot of people came in and said that he was class, and after he left us, I think he ends up at Blackburn and Man City, and again, he does no too bad there. But yeah, when it came to Celtic and just the way things were going that season, I think he just wasn't up for the fight at all. And plus, he was in a dressing room that, I say, under Barnes, it was the Wild West there. You had Viduka going in at half-time against Inverness and throwing his boots down and basically going, fuck this, I'm not playing. So when you've got that going on around about you as well, it's probably quite easy to understand why he probably just wasn't that arsed at all when it came to the how tough it was getting. Yeah, he was just wasn't cut out for it. But yeah, the Berkovic, he is one of those players where what could have been for a shut down. Again, I was excited when he came in because of the price tag, obviously, and what I'd seen him do in the Premier League for the years before that. So at the time, and especially the buzz around John Barnes coming in again, too young and naive to see the problem there of appointing a rookie manager. I'm just looking at the big name. John Barnes has come in. Kenny Dalglish is going to be the technical director, and we're just signing this guy for like 5.75 million from a Premier League team. So, the good times are here, but sadly, it wasn't to last that season. Now, before we do the halftime break, because we're at 50 minutes, there's one guy I'm going to bring up again, talk about big money that we spent on a striker. Somebody that we talked about not too long ago, David, on an episode of Bustalgia. Just a few weeks ago, we were doing the Tony Mowbray season, and there's a guy on that list that season who, ironically, we spent a fortune for Fortuné. As we said when we were doing that episode, the omens were bad right away because we took a while to get a manager because we publicly approached Owen Coyle and he knocked us back. Tony Mowbray got the job. He was clearly the second choice, maybe even the third choice, depending who you believe. And the first 4 weeks of his reign seemed to be centred around getting this guy that he worked with at West Brom the season before, Marc-Antoine Fortuné. And somewhere along the line in the run-up to Fortuné signing, Tony Mowbray, I very vividly remember doing an interview. I think he was at either a training camp. We were out in like Austria or something at a training camp, or it was maybe at Lennoxtown. And he was asked about the qualities that Fortuné brings to the team. And he said, he's a forward that doesn't really score goals. And in the end, we signed him for about £4 million. And for Celtic, that's a lot of money. Probably still is a lot of money. Got it Celtic as well. But yeah, that's not a good sign, isn't it, when the new manager spends pretty much his first month chasing a player who doesn't really score goals, and he's a forward, and his job is to score goals, David.
Oh, he fits in perfectly with that group of Celtic strikers over the years. Then he fits it perfectly. I know, imagine that. Imagine that's how you sell a player to the fans, to justify spending that kind of money on a player. Listen, I've got this guy. He's going to cost about £4 million, but listen, he'll not score many goals. But listen, if we're going to spend that kind of money, that looks good. That looks good. I know it's just one other player that you were desperate. When he did something good, it was great. Mm-hmm. It was just there was just huge gaps in between of that actually happening. And I mean, he goes back to West Brom, I think, right after us, didn't he? Or did he go off? He went somewhere else and then went back to West Brom. Seems to be a bit of a cult hero there.
Yeah.
But no, just another massive letdown. There's the only way you can really describe him. Like you said, like your own managers described the striker that doesn't score goals. I mean, what else can you say? What can you say about that? You can't. Yeah. What? Because then you're not expecting anything. I'm not expecting that, anything from this guy. So it's
maybe he was setting the bar low in the event. If he did do something good, then we go, he's better than we thought. So I can remember he scored against St Johnstone, maybe like the second game of the season. We beat them 5-2 at Celtic Park, and he got a couple of goals there. But then goals just became few and far between. Yeah, he did wrongfully get one ruled out against Rangers in a real crunch game at the sort of turn of the year. And he did finally get a goal against them, but it was effectively a dead rubber at the end of the season. We beat them 2-1. But he used to do that celebration, the writing one, because the press were writing a lot of negative stuff about him. So if he would score, he would run away doing that. Like, write headlines about me now. It's like, well, quite justified too. I mean, Celtic have forked out £4 million for you, and yeah, you're just definitely not the answer talking for that type of money. And again, maybe there's a naivety where you're like, he's coming up to Scotland. Surely it can't be that hard. I know Mowbray said he's not a striker that scores goals, but come on, he's been playing in England, he's playing in France, much better leagues. He's coming up here to Scotland. Could it really be that difficult? Surely he'll get about 20 goals coming to a standard like that. But no, you'd be, honestly, probably about 7 goals tops he might have scored all season or something. But yeah, he was.
I'm trying to remember. Did he play him with another, was it like 2 up front, or was he playing? I can't even remember if he was playing as a lone striker or.
There was games where he was playing alongside Samaras, which wasn't a good combination.
Yeah.
Samaras didn't really come into his own until Lenny was manager. And Samaras began to find his feet. Because when we did the season a few weeks ago, Liam, we were talking about it. The season before that, the Strachan final one, obviously the reason that we lost the league is we were heading towards the end of that season. We just ran out of goals. I think Scott McDonald copped an injury, and Venugura Hesselink with Samaras up front wasn't really delivering goals. So you've just ended that season. You've lost the league by drawing the last 2 games 0-0. And the new manager's come in and he spent 4 weeks chasing a guy that doesn't really score goals. So it was never, ever meant to be with old Marc-Antoine Fortuné. But yeah, a bit of irony there, Liam, with it being we spent a small fortune on Marc-Antoine Fortuné in the end.
I think that part that made Mowbray such a poor manager is he always found the wrong thing to say at the wrong time. You know, when we were looking for some sort of optimism that of signing a new player, I mean, he could have completely framed that differently. You know, he's not going to score you a lot of goals, but he's going to bring everybody around him into a scoring position because he attracts much heat or whatever he had to justify and come up just like, well, he's not going to score you much goals. You know, it's just. I think that's why he's a poor manager, and poor managers that communicate poorly. Well, that's what you confidence your players and everybody around you, and I think that was one of the things with guys like Mowbray, some ex-football guys that become managers and that they've got all the technical and that sort of stuff, but they don't have the communication savvy that you need to motivate players or even just get the crowd on your side and that as well. And he was really poor there.
Yeah, for a shadow of doubt. Before we quickly go to the break, Graham Martins came in with one. And by the way, guys, suggest names as well throughout the night about because I'm not really looking for the Freddie Lundbergs and the Dion Dublins of all guys who are in the very end of their career coming in on a free transfer. It's more guys that came in with a wee bit of excitement around them, a bit of pedigree from, they're in the prime of their career. They just came for a good league. Or in the case of this one, and I've mentioned this when we talked about the 06-07 season, I was so excited when we signed Derek Riordan. I was like, oh, he is going to be good. But yeah, again, just completely faded away really, really quickly. And it just became a running joke of how little game time he could get, despite, but that Hibs team were...
Just another BAM for Hibs, mate. Just another BAM for Hibs. They just seem to manage to bring all these BAMs to their youth system. And, every one of them are mental. And we end up signing a couple of them. And, Derek was...
Yeah,
had all the talent in the world, and was it Strachan? He had a massive fallout with Strachan. Right?
Yeah, it's again, there's all different stories about it. One of the ones that Steve-O told us, our very own Steve-O, said that again, somebody he knows someone that said that apparently he was just terrible at taking in instructions. Like Strachan would, this is what you're going to do in the game, and he just didn't take it in and just wouldn't obey the instructions, wanted to do his own thing. And there's another player that I'm going to talk about in the second half, a certain Danish midfielder, a bit of a wild man, who also struggled with taking instructions under Gordon Strachan and quickly found his way out the team. But we'll get to him because he's obviously the main man in the very centre of the thumbnail that I made for this one. But yeah, again, so there's a bit of a connection there. When I heard that Riordan story from Steve-O, I was like, well, Strachan did do the same thing with Thomas Gravesen, where if you don't listen to my instructions and don't do what I want you to do in the park, you're not going to last. And apparently Riordan was absolutely terrible and when it came to instructions, because I'm sure Strachan would always say like things about he's one of the best finishers at the club. He'd always talk him up, but then never really play him. He's on the substitutes bench and all our guys would get on before him. It was always a strange one with Riordan, but apparently it was just down to the fact that, you could lay out all the tactics before the game and Riordan would just go out there and just do his own thing. So it could very well be true. All the other rumours about relationships he may have had with certain people may have caused him to drop out the team, but that's another story. So yeah, we're just coming up to the hour mark just now. So I will put in a quick musical interlude, and when we come back, we'll be homing in on one specific position because I've got a whole list here, guys, of absolutely honking strikers that I was talking about earlier on at the top of the show. Roughly 1 to 3 million a pop each time, random strikers from all over the continent. So I've got a whole list of them that I'm going to run through when we come back for the break, and there are some absolute stinkers in there. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes, guys.
I mean, you've all that stuff at the start. They won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they? some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. In the chat, I don't know if this is one of these cases where somebody's bought a bunch of memberships, because nothing's came up here, but everyone is praising Boli just now. But it could be a case of, has he dished out memberships or something? Because it doesn't come up on StreamYard and nothing else has came up about membership. So if you have, whatever you've done, Boli, thank you very much.
Booked in a £10 super sticker as well.
There it is. The £10 super sticker's just appeared there. Excellent, excellent. There you go. There's the one right there. Thank you very much, Boli. But yeah, when it comes to people buying other people memberships, it doesn't actually come up on StreamYard. So every so often we're doing a show and then everybody will be saying like one person's name, like the wee applause emojis and stuff like that. So kind of, okay, something's happened there. But whatever you've done, Boli, thank you very much. Whether it's buying memberships or your £10 super sticker, or maybe you've renewed your own membership, whatever you've done, we appreciate it massively. Thank you indeed, sir. Now, before the break, I obviously said we're going to take a wee look, guys, at a specific position, because Celtic have had a bit of a notorious reputation over the last 15 years or so of just taking random punts on numerous strikers from all over the continent, usually about 1 million to 3 million, that type of price range. So here is a little killer's row of just some of those players, and I'm probably missing a few as well. I've got Morten Rasmussen, Stefan Skepovic, Nadir Chifchi, Daryl Murphy, Amido Balde, Bayo, Mo Bangura, Patrick Klamala. There's just a few in killer's row. But there's one that I didn't say there that I want to single out first and foremost that I think is a bit of an interesting one, because one of the subjects I wanted to look at is there any players we maybe judged a bit too quickly and just decided he wasn't for us, and obviously we moved them on really quickly. And since they left us, they've actually gone on and done no bad. And the one that stands out to me is Teemu Pukki, David, who went to Brøndby first in Denmark, and then he went to Norwich. And of course, Norwich are that team in England that just yo-yo between the top two divisions. But it always seems like when they go down, they come back up, and Teemu Pukki is usually the top goal scorer. And even there was one of the seasons when they did come back into the Premier League, but I think he started the season pretty well. And for me, I felt like that was the moment. If he was going to make a move from there to a bigger club, that was the point, but it never happened, and he's still at Norwich now. So maybe he's kind of in that position where he's lulled there a wee bit too long. But there was a period where he was literally the most red-hot striker in England in the top four divisions.
Well, he's actually leaving Norwich at the end of the season. He's let his contract run out because he's not getting as much game time. But am I right in saying we signed him when he was fairly young, like 21, 22 maybe?
Signed for Schalke, Bundesliga team.
And if I remember right, Lennon was quite said that he was very shy, very quiet, and didn't speak at all really in the dressing room. Didn't really partake in any of the banter that was happening in the training and the dressing room and stuff. So again, maybe a club just too big a club with too much expectations for a young player like him, and he's matured over the years into a far more confident person and obviously player. I think the Championship is his level though. Like I know he had that little purple patch at the start of the Premier League. He kind of took off where he left off after they got promoted, and then quickly found out that he's maybe too good for the Championship, but just not quite good enough for the Premiership. But then if that's the case, you'd think he would do all right in Scotland. But I think just timing was just not, it just wasn't the right club at the right time. And, if we'd got a team of Pukki at 26, 27 in his prime,
maybe
I think it might be a totally different conversation we're having about him. Because even like, I think there was talks at one point going on, maybe we should be trying to sign him, get him back at Celtic now.
Bring him home.
But I don't think we would. I bring him home.
Bring him home.
Him
and Patrick.
I don't think we'd have been able to afford him. But yeah, just a lot of expectation on the player, and again, just not up to it. Just couldn't handle the weight that the Celtic shirt carries. Norwich's shirt's a far lighter shirt to wear around.
Evidently, yes, as indeed. Liam, when it comes to like Pukki, I think he himself has done interviews talking about his time at Celtic where he's got no real axe to grind and he's not bitter about it, but he admits himself the physicality was definitely a problem. And I think when you do look at his time at Celtic, you can see in what David's talking about there. Neil Lennon said he was quite a sort of wee shy type player. He wasn't really bulked up or anything, and as a hammer thrower league at the best of times. I remember him scoring in his debut at Tynecastle against Hearts. But yeah, he'll been up against, at that point in time, that was a Rangers free division. So this is when teams like Inverness with Ross Tokley and stuff like that at the back were like in the top six. So I'd imagine going up against these type of cloggers wouldn't have been what a team of Pukki would enjoy very much. But it's probably more physical because you look at him now and what he's done at Norwich. He is a lot more physical. Like he has bulked out a wee bit, but yeah, he just it just didn't work out for him in the end. But he obviously went on to prove that he is a half decent goal scorer. Oh, he's
muted again, mate.
There we go. You're unmuted now.
No problem. I think you touched on it briefly there. The optics of Teemu Pukki. So when he came to us, he looked like that guy for Blades of Glory, the figure skater,
He does.
What's his John Heder? Is that the artist?
Yeah, it's aye.
God Cantwell,
Napoleon Dynamite.
Okay, so figure this out. So I don't think that's a good look to be making your entry into Scottish football with. You're not going to strike fear into anybody you look like that and stuff. And Scotland's a very, I don't know, like a hard type country to play against football against. I think he went and he shaved his hair and he put on a wee bit of beef and that. You grow physically as well, and that physicality gives you much more confidence and much more bravery and stuff like that. And I think that was maybe it. Maybe you got the shit kicked to him for a while in Scotland, but it might have inspired his next move. Like, okay, wait a minute, I'm going to have to get rid of this. Happened to me when I was young playing football. I looked like Andy Gibb when I was about 18, and he wasn't until I got a punk rock haircut. I was like, oh wait a minute, guys are giving me a couple of yards now. So I don't know, could be something like that.
Yeah. He's in that club of Celtic strikers over the last 15 years or so that just we brought them in, took a punt on £1, £2, £3 million, whatever, and yeah, it just didn't work out. Another one in there. I think this needs to be brought up, especially because the story was he was recommended to us by the great Henrik Larsson, Bangura. who is from Sierra Leone. He's not from Sweden, as Russell did on Sudden Death not too long ago. He threw that one out there. He is from Sierra Leone, but he was playing in Sweden for AIK Stockholm, I believe. And I think it sums up his time at Celtic that the most notable thing he did when he was a Celtic player was he played against us on loan for another team in the Champions League. And it's like, if that sums it up of how little he did, because I think he scores a goal in a friendly against Steaua Bucharest, and that's about it. But it's a strange story, Liam, when you hear it, that Henrik Larsson recommended this guy, and it's kind of like, are you watching the same player that we are, Henrik? Because there was a weird story as well. I could be wrong on this. Did he not have a brother that played for the same team, and the rumour was we signed the wrong Bangura?
Aye, definitely. That sounds like the lyrics to the dirtiest song you've ever heard or something, doesn't it? Like, we signed the wrong Bangura, all right. You know?
Dreadful.
Was he not playing in? Did he not go and sign for a Turkish team? The other Mohamed Bangura.
Oh, the other one. He might very well have. I remember at the time there was this story that we'd signed the wrong one, but I don't know if it was just like a bit of mischief in the headline, just because Mo Bangura had been terrible since we'd signed him. He just didn't really do anything for us. But yeah, I remember the story about Henrik Larsson apparently recommended him. And it's like, yeah, that was way, way off the mark there with that one. Do you have any memories of that period? Because that's, I say, David, that's been inside a few players of that sort of ilk. The Neil Lennon's era is renowned for some strikers coming in. I know Miku was a loan and Lasad was a free transfer, but there was a bit of a revolving door of like strikers coming in at a point. Pavel Brojek was another one we brought in on loan around about the time, and I think he played like one game for us or something. It was just a weird rotating door.
Well, obviously the Mo Bangura one was the big one, because I think we were all excited about him coming just because of the recommendation from the king. You just looked, when you get those players, you just look at, you look good. You look like you're going to be a good football player. And obviously that's not how football works, and it's not. And it just happened to be the case. Amido Balde was the one that really let me down big time, man.
Yeah.
I remember like it was yesterday. I don't know why, but we're in. It was myself and my ex at the time. We were in Dundee. She was shopping, and I knew that it was like transfer deadline day or whatever it was. And I'm looking at the closet, look at Sky Sports, and then Amido Balde pops up, and this is a guy that we're going to sign. And his quote was, "I will make you forget all about Gary Hooper." And the title of it was Gary Who, Gary Hooper or something, like just something stupid like that. And I'm going, aye, fuck Gary Hooper, man. I'm all in with this Amido Balde, man. I am all in. I'm doubling down on this guy. And fuck me, that was a big mistake. But yeah, I remember that like as clear as day. I was proper pumped. I was like, yes, I'm gonna forget all about Gary Hooper, like this guy says. And yeah.
Aye.
I
was the same with Balde. I found a real excitement about him again, and it's just like you sometimes go back with hindsight and think, what was it that I was so excited about? Is it because his name was Balde? He had a similar build to Bobo, but he was a striker version, so it was like, a Bobo Balde up front, essentially, a big bruiser. Oh, this will be class. But
signing for a Portuguese club as well. But
he was.
Yeah, just all these little things were like, oh, yeah, this guy's got to be good. It's got to be good.
Aye. I was doing it at Rugby Park. We beat Kilmarnock 5-2 quite early. So he scored his first goal against Partick Thistle at Firhill, and the next week we were playing Kilmarnock at Rugby Park, and I was at that game. And I think Samaras scores a hat trick. They were wearing the yellow Magnus away kit that had like the green like thin lines across it. Beautiful sunny day. And I remember Amido Balde came on, scored the fifth goal. Like he just ran through their defence and just like powered it, low driven shot, and a good FIFA term there, David, for you. A low driven shot into the far corner. And the fans at the end, it was proper. Like everyone was buzzing for Amido Balde. It was like, oh yes, man. I think that was the last goal he scored for us. I can't remember him in a competitive game anyway, scoring after that. I think he did a friendly at the start of that season. He scored the winning goal against Liverpool in a game played in Dublin. But after that goal against Kilmarnock, where everyone came away like chanting his name, was like, so excited for this lad. And it just did not. He just joined that list again. What were you saying, Amido Balde? Your memories? Were you as excited as me and David were? Like, oh yes, here we go.
No, I was too jaded by that time now. Like, you know, I'd seen him far too many come and go by that point, and he wasn't there.
You've seen through the bullshit.
The one that was Koki Mizuno. Do you guys old enough to him?
I remember Japanese winger that we signed after the Nakamura success, and he just didn't. He was the Nakamura, put it that way.
No, and he came in like, watch his highlight reel. It was like under 21 or under 23 World Cup or something. He was in that, and he was absolutely amazing in it. And then you seen him, his highlight reel for Japan, and then his first game against Falkirk. You watch the goal he scored. That could have been Kyogo. It was like, oh, I haven't seen many other goals like that, like Gary Hooper type goals or that. And just looked a player and then completely just disappeared. He was meant to be there to be Nakamura's understudy, and he was the Japanese international, and I don't know what happened. We just lost him somehow. You know,
well, you look at what's going on now, Liam, with the Japanese contingent that we sign, and Ange is very strategic, and the ones he brings in, he doesn't just go in like the wildfire, just sign him. There's actually a lot of method in the madness. Supposedly, all the players that we've signed are all from the same side of the country, and there's different traditions from the east side of Japan to the west side. All the ones we've signed are all from the west side of the country, so things like that are deliberate. I think with the Mizuno one, I think we've just looked at the success of Nakamura and just thought, let's get another Japanese player. That'll be good, and it doesn't necessarily work out. You need a wee bit of due diligence on it. You just can't go in and pick them up. Because I do remember the Mizuno goal against Falkirk you're talking about. I remember that one. But that was like the one and only fleeting highlight. But yeah, he came in with a bit of like, oh, you're excited again? Like, oh, this guy's going to be good, because again, you're just thinking, well, Nakamura was good. How can this guy not be? But yeah, he did not work out at all. He just again, another flatter to deceive type of one again, where you've got all the excitement, but yeah, one goal I think to show for it at the time. Although strangely enough, I think he did play in a game at Ibrox that we won when Scott McDonald scored the volley in Stratton's last season, and Mizuno's definitely playing in that game. So how he managed to come through that one, but yeah, he's not got many in the terms of the highlights reel when it comes to his Celtic time. But another guy, when we're talking about strikers, I think when you bring him up, we talked about, obviously, in the first half of the show, we talked about Vasilius Barkas and the 5 million signing he was. That's summer. But let's go to the other end of the park, up to the strikers. Another 5 million we spent, David. We could have spent it on Ivan Toney. He was in the door. He was ready to sign. I know you get angry about this one. That's why I've come to you. But instead, we opted for Albian Ajeti. We haggled apparently over the price for Toney. Didn't get him. And Albian Ajeti was the answer. But keep in mind, Ajeti scored 6 goals in his first 6 games. When I looked at his build and the style of play, scoring goals in the 6-yard box, my first thought was Gary Hooper. I was like, this is a Neil Lennon Gary Hooper type signing, where this is his new Gary Hooper. So he's 6 goals, all Portugals. He is injured against Hibs. I think he actually scored and got injured at the same time. Went off, and when he came back after that, he just wasn't the same player. And the rot was beginning to set in anyway within that really toxic Celtic team. So he was that was a bit. Remember, he did get a very, very brief run under Ange in his first season when injuries had set in pretty hard. And he did contribute a couple of goals in a victory over Ross County. And he also scored against Betis in that slobber knocker of a Europa League game we had. But Albian Ajeti, mate.
It's a weird one, because you said, I remember it was actually his debut did he not come in against Aberdeen?
Dundee United at Tannadice. We were struggling 0-0.
And he grabbed a line
and he scored. Yep.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I remember I was watching it. My dad actually was visiting at the time. We were watching it, and we both said when he scored, he's like, he's the new Gary Hooper. He's going to be the new Gary Hooper. It's like a Lennon signing as well. It's like he was trying to replicate what worked the first time around. Whether he was going to partner him up with Griffiths or Eddie, I don't know what the plan was going to be, but I was like, yeah, this is Gary Hooper 2.0, and like again, scores the 6 goals fairly confidently. You're starting to go, yeah, okay, this guy's the real deal. And then, yeah, he just fell off a cliff. Do you remember, though, when it wasn't the best start for him when he was, the media were coming out with saying, and it could have just been the media, that he was really having to think about it if he wanted to come to Celtic. I think Celtic originally wanted to try and get him on loan, and he wasn't up for coming on loan, and it was a case of he might not even come at all. And then it's like Celtic hit the panic button and just went, right, cool, there's $5 million for a player that never kicked the ball for West Ham. I think he was maybe living off his Basel reputation with that price tag. There's no real rhyme or reason as to why it didn't work out for him. Like you said, he got that wee injury and then just was never the same. And it's like, well, you were on a great form. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember how he got injured. Was it a bad tackle or anything like that?
Maybe against Hibs, and I think, and it was like a rebound goal. It came back out to him, and he stuck it in the net. But I think he injures himself, or he gets tackled as he puts it in the net. So I remember right after it, he was basically stretchered off right after the goal. Or taken off after the goal.
Just wonder if maybe the game is, it's like, remember when Beram Kyle got that really bad tackle, and that was like his whole confidence just was gone when he came back from injury, just almost like scared of the physicality of the Scottish game, and it really just hindered his career at Celtic after that, after having such a great first season. I wonder if that maybe played a part, like, he just didn't want to really go all in. Try and score these types of goals at what he was feeding off of, because he was getting hacked to bits by the opposition. And like you say, like, he even got that. He looked like he had lost a bit of weight. He could have trimmed up a bit, and even put the captain armband on him in the friendlies, and it was like maybe a bit of a vote of confidence in him to be like,
that's right.
And it just hasn't worked out. And then he goes back to his home country to try and maybe rebuild his career. And I think, again, started off fairly well when you're going, oh, okay, maybe he just needed to go and build his confidence back up. But I think that's petered away as well. In his home.
Well, that's a pub quiz answer, what you said there about the captain's armband. I can remember that at the time we played Sheffield Wednesday in the first Ange game, friendly. Who was the first captain that Ange Postecoglou had? Albian Ajeti put the armband on him in that game. I remember that one. But here, Brown Warriors coming in and is saying, Ajeti's a poacher, right player, wrong team. He will score goals anywhere. And also, Brown Warriors followed up by saying that we never deployed him correctly. I say the boy did score like 6 goals his first 6 games, so we're doing something right initially. But maybe David is correct with going off injured. Maybe when he came back, it was just a psychological thing, but he wasn't as committed to it. But I say by the time he did come back, we were obviously, the rot was really setting in. So again, it's that season where it's just a whole cluster of problems. But Ajeti, it could have been Ivan Toney though. Would Ivan Toney though have been the rip-roaring success that we see now? Because again, you're coming into that Celtic team. Would he have been the difference? Would things still have panned out? Would things have went down the Swanee? Again, these are all things that we'll never ever know. But if you're just going on the bare facts of look at how both players' careers went, Ivan Toney's proved to be quite a special talent.
Well, he scored some amount of goals, but I don't know how that would have worked for Celtic as well. I mean, imagine him. What would he have come in under Ange, or was that the year before Ange? Year before Ange, right? So he would have come into that season, and I don't know how he would have performed at that point as well. Just getting back to Ajeti for a minute, Phil. You know what I liked about Ajeti? I liked the fact we were getting a Swiss international for a Switzerland team where there was all this like high energy stuff, and it was all these like Albanian or Kosovo Swiss guys that were providing all that, like Shaqiri, and then there was other guys that were all flying Wu-Tang songs and Wu-Tang.
Granit Xhaka did that as well, the Albanian two-headed bird. Yep, that's right.
And so that's what I thought we needed in our team at that point as well, a bit of swagger, a bit of Wu-Tang Clan up front, and right down to the Boli Walnut Sopranos haircut. And I thought we were going to get somebody that was going to come in and bully some of these defenders that were starting to get cheeky with us again and that, and show a bit of grit in there. I mean, like Shaqiri's a big guy, but my God, that boy had a presence on the park, and especially in international games, he ran the show. And so I thought with similar stature, similar type upbringing as well, we would be getting somebody, okay, could poach goals like Gary Hooper, but fling it about as well with a bit of like swagger and a wee bit of not nastiness, but like street smarts. A street fighter. Somebody up front going to scrap, but also give finesse as well. And again, Tony might have given us that as well, but I don't know. I mean,
one of the things we'll just need to just speculate what would have happened. David, am I right in saying that El Yunusi played alongside Ajeti at Basel together?
They did, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they were part of the same team. And Basel did really well in the in Champions League. I don't know if was he part of the team that beat Man United in the Champions League. Would he have been part of that team? He moved from. I'm just looking at when he's moved. How much West Ham paid for him? They paid €7 million, and upwards up to €11.3 million for him from Basel, and obviously then we paid, 5.5 million once it had all been paid off. I'm just trying to see what his stats were at, like goals conversion was at Basel, because I'm sure he had a pretty good goal scoring record there. I mean, it's like somebody asked in the chat there, does he get a chance when he comes back?
Yeah, as a Kieran McFadden, does he get a chance along with Barkas?
I don't know. It's like you said, like he should surely score goals. A poacher should score goals in that Celtic team. The ball comes flying across the box a million times a game. He's surely got to get on the end of one or two of them. It's like he said, if he got his confidence back up and got, really put his neck on the line and made the runs and he's in and about that box. Because sometimes you see, obviously, Kyogo always makes those runs to the near post, and he's always there to tap it in or stab at home and stuff. But there's a lot of the time that because he's done all that tracking back and stealing the ball in the midfield to then get it out wide, I think Ajeti's always buzzing around that box. He should be getting on the end of these crosses, like because you see the ball getting played across the face of the goal, and there's nobody ever there. Sometimes you're like, why was there nobody there? You think a player like him, with his reputation, his style of play, would be tapping them home, 3-4 times a game.
Yeah,
like it's
Warriors saying that, and you're right. How many times you get frustrated with Celtic where we zip one across and nobody's read it, and it just zips out for a goal kick, and it's like, well, there you go. Brian was saying, if you look at Ajeti's goals, he did score. He's the guy who sclaffs it in from 6 yards. As long as somebody puts it in, no matter how they put it in from 6 yards, because the amount of chances we make there. And I think that one that went against him, if I remember right, we had that game with Dundee United early on with Ange, where we drew 1-1 at Celtic Park, and he missed an absolute clanger from about 6 yards out and ballooned it over the bar. I think that was one of the last games he actually played for us. But yeah, that was where he had that Betis goal, the goals against Ross County. But then he went to a Dundee United game, we draw 1-1, and he ballooned one over the bar from right in front of goal, and it was like, a chance.
Phil, I'm looking at his... I don't know how competitive the Swiss League is, right? But in 96 appearances, he scored 43 goals.
That's a good ratio.
That's a good return. That's a good ratio. It's wild. I mean, 9 goals in 48 appearances for Celtic, though.
Maybe you'll see him come back. If we decide to ever go 2 up front, he might be a good option playing with one of them, about getting to the ones in the box, getting to all the scrambles, that sort of thing. That might be a better positioning for him there if we start playing the 2. His thing is like, can he press, every time.
Yeah, the pressing thing.
I'm straight up,
You've got to buy into the way Ange plays, and maybe Ajeti just wasn't willing to buy in. But, if he was willing to buy in, you just don't know, eh? But I don't know if he's going to be, if he's going to get a third chance.
Well, you were mentioning like his record in Switzerland. You've got to imagine like the standard of the Swiss league isn't too far off the standard that we play in, because Kieran's came in and just said, he's got a mate works for the Swiss and a massive Basel fan. The amount of players that come from Basel is unreal. Obviously, Mo Salah played there. He's got Shaqiri and stuff like that. But yeah, it's again a team that we know from yesteryear with Celtic. So obviously they beat us in the Champions League qualifier, but of course we got to the UEFA Cup final that season. But they're always a team that are there or thereabouts. They either do pretty well in the Europa League, get through to the latter stages, or they're always lurking about in pot 3 or pot 4 of the Champions League pots. So always a team that do have a bit of clout around them, a bit of reputation. They can produce some decent players. And yeah, you did highlight that they've definitely beat Man United in recent years in the Champions League. There was some, I think it was in 2000, around about 2019, around about there. Because I remember seeing some Man United fan ranting on Twitter saying, and when Alex Ferguson was still the manager, they get beat by Basel in a Champions League game, and Phil Jones and Chris Smalling were playing that night in centre-back. And in 2019, when they lost again to them, it was Phil Jones and Chris Smalling that were playing at centre-back. So they have taken a few scalps as well, but they are a team. You've got to imagine we can attract players at that level. If we're going to look at countries in Europe to try and pillage some talent. The Swiss league is the type one. Teams like Basel, they're a decent outfit. It's not like some of the draws that we've taken punts on in the, when I read out that list there, somebody like, say, Bio, for instance, who was playing in the Slovakian league. It's the Swiss league, I would say, is a much better standard. And actually, on the topic of Bio, was he not also recommended by Lubomir Moravcik? Or was that a lazy headline from a journalist or something like that? Because also had the Larson Bangura one. But I think there's a headline doing the rounds about Bio saying that Lubomir Moravcik's been talking him up. And it's like, oh, no, this again. And of course, it ended up being a similar scenario with Bio as it was with Bangura, where just did not live up to any. And that was another couple of million that was wasted. The best thing about Bio was his unveiling, the Undertaker unveiling, as they called it, where it was like the lights were out and then the lights came on, and then he's standing in the middle of the centre circle with the scarf. Somebody put the Undertaker gong on a video of it, and it was so perfectly done. But yeah, that's literally the best thing that happened to Bio at Celtic was his unveiling. After that, it was all downhill rapidly.
I was excited about him as well too. I mean, he's at Watford now.
Watford, yeah, he is. Championship.
Mental.
Apparently, he had a good season in Belgium. He did all right when he went to Belgium, and now he's transferred to Watford in the English Championship. So he's playing at a decent level now. I don't know how many goals he's netted this season. I don't know if he's done a team of Pukki and going to score 30 goals in the Championship.
Was he given a fair crack at the whip at Celtic, Bio? I don't remember him playing a full 90 minutes or even start a game. I mean, you got to earn a start, obviously. You got to earn your minutes, but
Bio came in that same window that Brendan Rodgers did the Marian Shved. We were signing another winger. That was that window. So did Brendan Rodgers even have a say in that transfer? But yeah, that's the one with Shved. Shved's another one you could throw in there. The best player you've never seen. He was a guy that every time he was left out of the team, it felt like on Twitter, more people kept talking about how much a baller he is and how amazing he is. It's like, we've barely seen this guy, but it felt like every time he was left out, his reputation seemed to grow. And more fans are like, oh, I can't wait to see Shved. And I think he got out of nowhere under Neil Lennon when Lennon came back and took over the job. He played an Estonian team in a Champions League qualifier, and he came off the bench and scored this brilliant goal, bent it right into the top corner. And then you're thinking, right, now we're going to see Marian Shved. This is it. Nah. No, another one that, and he came in again. He'd played for Seville and stuff like that, hadn't he?
He's played for Shakhtar and didn't score against us. And
he's playing for Shakhtar now, and apparently he's been doing all right. But he played against us in the away game we played, or the game on neutral soil. But I think he missed the one at Celtic Park. But he's been doing all right. But when he joined us, he already had Seville on his CV. So you're like, well, if he's made it to La Liga with a team like Seville, he must be quite decent. Coming in again for another couple million, whatever. And yeah, as I say, David, I just feel like every time he was left out the team sheet, you'd read the Twitter comments. It was like, this guy got better. His reputation seemed to go up every time he didn't play. It was so weird.
I admit, so when we played Shakhtar away, that was when I was in the hospital. And I was pretty much out cold for the whole day and night. And I woke up, and the first thought was, what was the Celtic score? And I go and look at and I managed to watch the highlights, and I seen Shved absolutely ripping us apart at times, and I went back into a coma again. I was just like, nah, I'm out. Wait me up another 3 days. But that was another one. I'd have loved to have seen him get more of a chance, but I don't know if it was maybe Brendan being stubborn and being like, look, I had no say on this guy. I don't want anything to do with him. So you can be part of the squad all you want. I'm not going to play him. Another one that we'll never really know if he had what it takes to be a Celtic player, but
he just faded into the background. Liam, I've got one for you, mate, because I know that you've been, I don't want to say quite vocal, but you're not afraid to say your feelings on Greg Taylor, left back. But do you remember when we signed Greg Taylor, we signed another left back at the same time for a bit of a higher price, coming from a foreign club as well, come from Rapid Vienna. And in some alternative universe, imagine if this guy had ended up in Greg Taylor's position right now and things worked out differently. What do you think of Boli Bolingoli, Liam?
I mean, I remember seeing him again. The only reason I knew about him was because he was in a scrap with somebody at Rangers. When he played
in the Europa League game the season before. Yep.
He'd taken somebody and he was giving him harsh words and all that. The other thing I knew, he was like Lukaku's cousin, right? They're first cousins. Like
they are indeed.
Yep. Is it?
I
did not know that.
And is it Romelu's brother Jordan Lukaku plays for Lazio? He did play for Lazio, but yeah, it's like Boli, Bolingoli, and Bombo, and Romelu Lukaku's full name is Romelu Lukaku and Bombo, and it's like so they are family, but yeah, he is related to Romelu.
Didn't really have patience for him at all. Because of that, the Rangers thing, I'd read a couple of things online that he wasn't that great for them, and he was on our radar because of that. That might have been one of the reasons, just because he's like showed up against Rangers, and Rangers far better at doing that. Guys that score against Celtic and like what's it name, Avadze and that. Guys like that. And then they'll sign them. The one that disappointed me, then some of you might remember him. I remembered him from the World Cup when he was playing with Australia, and that was the boy from Man City, Daniel Azani. Coming on to play project late in games, and he was rapid. He was creative. He was playing against world class teams and didn't look at the place. You could tell how excited the commentators were when he came on. Everything, and then when we got a hold of him from on loan from Man City, Rodgers kept him on the bench for ages, even when we're dying for creativity. And when
did he not get injured, Liam? Did he not get injured? He did.
Daniel Azani is in that club with Marvin Compere, where he only played like 20 minutes of football for Celtic. Marvin Compere's, we didn't sign him for that much money, but that was another weird signing. But Azani came off the bench against Dundee, or either started the game and played 20 minutes, got injured, and never played again for the rest of the season.
I forgot we even had him. You absolutely threw me that. I totally forgot we'd signed him. Because
he was World Cup. He looked a player. Yep.
Aye.
Proper baller.
Wow, you threw me with that one, mate.
He played for whatever team it is out in Australia. I believe it's Melbourne City that are part of the City group. And he transferred to Manchester City, who instantly loaned him to us because, again, of that City group connection we like to utilise. And yeah, I was dead excited for Azani as well because, again, by all accounts at the World Cup, he looked really handy. And he played. He didn't even get that much game time. And when he finally did, he's got his big chance up at Dens Park. And he got injured, only played 20 minutes, and it was that bad that he was crocked for the whole season. But yeah, Azani was another one that just promised so much. You could maybe say the same for somebody like Charlie Musonda. That was another one that came in with a good reputation. I know these are loan deals, and I said obviously I was trying to concentrate more on ones where we've spunk money, but apparently if you go on transfer market, it says that we did pay a fee for Musonda to take him on loan as well. We paid about £2 million as well to take him on loan. He had that one assist against Zenit St. Petersburg that Callum McGregor scored, but yeah, Musonda, that's another one that came.
That loan deal's ruined ruined a bit of a relationship with Chelsea and getting any of their players because they were not happy that he was not used. Yeah, they were not.
They loan out more players than anybody else. Everyone gets a player off Chelsea. It's like you can have one. They've just got this endless supply of youngsters.
There's plenty of players. There's plenty of players now they could be shipping off on loan if they wanted. Like,
yeah, definitely. They're a sinking ship right now. But I'm Musonda, Daniel Azani, these types of players. I keep it in that era roughly as well. Obviously, I mentioned like Boli Bolingoli. And by the way, just quickly on Boli, there was a period where he did look like, this guy is going to be good because we had a game at Ibrox where we beat them 2-0 when Johnny Hayes scored a late win. Well, we're already winning 1-0 at that point, but Johnny Hayes obviously scored the second. But Bolingoli played that day and actually played pretty well. El Hamid had a good game. He started really well for us and all.
Homesick.
Yeah, and that fell away. We had Beaton and Julian playing centre back that day, and the two of them were formidable at the back. But Bolingoli was excellent, and then we played Cluj in the Europa League, not the infamous Champions League qualifier at the start of the season where they knocked us out. We drew them again in the Europa League, and he was brilliant that night, and he actually set up Edward for the opening goal, like a great cross in for Edward to score at the near post. And that was a wee period where he was going for a purple patch. You thought, okay, this guy's finding his feet now. But yeah, it quickly regressed for him. And then, of course, that happened at the start of the COVID season again. Coming back to that bloody COVID season, everything goes wrong. And of course, that happened where he took away unauthorized travel. But keeping it in that era of some other players, another one that came up, remember Kouassi Abui, the best part of 3 million, I believe, we spent on this guy.
The Lion.
The Lion, yes. Again, another one that came in with a lot of excitement around him and so on. And yeah, it just did not go well. All I remember is he posted an Instagram video of him like listening to some selective Irish folk music, shall we say, to endear himself to the Celtic fan. Yeah, he was very selective in what he was picking there, and it's like, yeah, he gets it right away. He gets it.
He gets it.
He gets it. Come on. But yeah, he was. And of course, there's that game where we played Hearts and the one at Murrayfield where McLean, the Hearts striker, basically injures Kouassi David by grabbing him in a rather sensitive area, shall we say, and giving him a groin injury. So much so he tried to run it off and actually made it worse. And that pretty much summed up Kouassi Abui's Celtic career.
Yeah, I mean, he was part of that sort of clique of the French boys, because I'm sure he could speak fluent French.
Yeah,
so he was always around Dembele, Edouard, and Cham. He was kind of part of that crew, but just never on the pitch, unfortunately. Because he had that. Remember, he played that Europa League game. Maybe had and then we blew it in the second leg.
Is it the Zenit game? Zenit St. Petersburg.
Zenit, yeah. And he had a cracking game, and I thought, yes, brilliant. This boy that's finally he's made his mark, and he'll probably, play brilliantly for the then on out. But I think did he even play this second leg? I can't remember, but. That's it. I mean, you can't mind that. It says it all. Really.
That's it. Unmemorable. No real I think he scored any goals. Not that I mean, but defensive mid, you don't expect him to score goals. But yeah, he's got no real standout moments other than, I say, an injury that a Hearts player gave him that was kind of comical in the end.
Yeah. See, quickly going back to Boli. If he hadn't flown off to Turkey or wherever it was he went to, would he have lasted? But that was the kind of almost used as the reason as to why Celtic fans didn't want to see him at the club again. Was it solely on that reason, you reckon, or was it because he was playing a bit? Because like you said, there was moments where you thought, he does like a player, or was it just his behaviour or the way he conducted himself in lockdown? And then looking back on it now. Was it really the worst thing that somebody did in lockdown when you look back what's come out and the way people behaved during lockdown? Can that be really put on him? Especially at a time where we didn't really know. I'm not condoning what he did, by the way, because he certainly shouldn't have done it. But he should have known better just to do as he was told, essentially, by the club. But he did it. But there was a lot of confusion at that time in the world where people didn't really know what they could and what they couldn't do and what was morally correct and right. And then when you find out what high-ranking officials and politicians have been doing through that exact period of time, it's like, is it really that bad in terms of, should that be the main reason why he should never have played for Celtic again? Because that was what was getting, heard that a lot in the podcast and other people's podcasts. It was like, should never play for Celtic again. And that was the sole reason. That was the sole reason, not because his performances. Now, if he took that away from the situation, completely forget that he flew to Turkey. Did he do enough to still merit another chance? Because I think he was punted out the club mainly because of the bad publicity that he brought for that.
Yeah, he definitely had some fleeting moments, as I say, where he looked the part. I think if that didn't happen with the unauthorised trip, I think he stays and we don't bring in Diego Laxalt, because we loaned Bolingoli out to a Turkish team, didn't we? We just loaned them out, and then we brought in Diego Laxalt and Greg Taylor with the two left back options we had. But Taylor had started to get more game time at this point. But I think it would have just been a case of Bolingoli would have stuck around. But I think Taylor would have still picked him to the number one left back spot. But yeah, we wouldn't have signed Diego Laxalt, and that's another one that came in with a big reputation and a lot of buzz. Again, I know it's only a loan deal in this one, but again, the one who started and looked all right when he first came in, but as is most things with that season, it all quickly turned to shit. Everything just went wrong.
There's the judge he's giving me black eyes again. It's not even Tuesday night, and he's beating me up already. Keep it for Judgment Day, Judge. Come on.
Yes, indeed, Judge.
This is Friday. This is a chilled night. Come on.
Brilliant with like to see with some of the players like Kurasi Abui and stuff like that. At that time there was a few like random ones, but one I'm going to go back to a wee bit further was we've talked about it before when we've done Bustalgia episodes, Martin O'Neill month in particular. So Henrik Larsson gives us 7 unbelievable years. The final year he tells us, right, I'm leaving at the end of the season, so we've got a whole year to prepare for it. And of course he goes off to Barcelona, and Celtic kind of hum and haw and twiddle their thumbs and that summer. Obviously we signed Henri Camara on loan, but again I'm trying to steer away from the loan ones. At the end of the day, I'm looking more at ones that came in, we signed full time. And we brought in the guy that took the number 7 shirt, and he came in with a big reputation, Juninho. Not the Leon one I was talking about earlier, the Middlesbrough one who'd also played for Atletico Madrid. And he only had a World Cup winners medal in his medal case as well, Liam. So he was a Brazilian international, an actual credible Brazilian international, maybe not the first team, but compared to Rafael Scheidt, this guy had a bit of credit in the bank. He'd obviously had a few spells at Middlesbrough, had been a bit of a hero down there, but Premier League experience, had played in La Liga with Atletico, had won a trophy with Middlesbrough, which was a rarity, and he'd been in the Brazilian World Cup squad that won the World Cup in 2002. He comes in, he has a fantastic debut game against Rangers, a game that we win 1-0. I was excited about Juninho. It was like one of these last-minute signings before the deadline closed because we'd brought on Henri Camara, and you knew right away this guy's not going to replace Larsson. But then we signed Juninho, and you're like, oh, this is the marquee guy that we could. This is the one. This is the guy. And you had a lot of high hopes, but again with Juninho, quickly faded out. Do you think he was another one that just wasn't up for the fight, the rough and tumble of Scottish football? Because again, look at his stature, look at his build.
I don't know if that was the problem. I watched the highlights this afternoon where he played against Rangers, and he's right in the thick of it. He was right in the thick of all the fighting. He was arguing and pushing away with players and all that. And you see a lot of these small Brazilians. They're resilient. They're absolutely tough and hard as nails. And just getting up and all that. And I think he's probably had the shit kicked to him everywhere he's went. Being a smaller guy. But just knows how to deal with it and knows how to find that level of toughness where, I'll show you just by putting the ball in the back of the net. I think when we signed him, I'm thinking box office,
Yeah, totally.
Ready-made, comes out the box, it's already assembled. I can just send it in the park to do its things, and I don't know. So who takes the blame for that one? I don't think Juninho's form dropped drastically where it was something. So obviously it had to be the tactics. We still had the nucleus of a really good team round about him that had helped a player like Larsson. But I don't know, maybe that was the chemistry that was wrong, where this was a team built around Larsson, and Larsson was the king and he had everybody's respect. Juninho coming in and having to earn people's respect, even though he's like a World Cup winner and stuff like that. Maybe realised right his way too, playing with these guys, that they knew he wasn't as good as Larsson, and that might have been the thing right away, because you can tell that with players. Henrik would have put that away, or when Henrik would have, and that could have been the pressure. He was saying that he never should have left Middlesbrough the first time. Said he never should have left England. He didn't enjoy his time in Atletico Madrid.
Strangely, he had 3 spells at Middlesbrough in his career. I've been in the city of Middlesbrough, and no offence to if anyone is, but I don't know why a Brazilian player would want to go back there so many times. It's obviously some serious money, because that was a weird spell for them when they had Ravanelli and Emerson and Juninho, and yeah, they were throwing some mad money at it. But yeah, this idea of this wee Brazilian player, wee silky Brazilian, he just keeps finding his way back to Middlesbrough. Strange times. But yeah, he was it just didn't quite work out for him. But the guy that I want to finish on is the main guy on the thumbnail tonight. One of the maddest men in Celtic history. He is notorious because if you watch Simon Ferry, an open goal, he is the go-to anecdote. He is a walking, living meme. The stories are unbelievable when you hear about it. As a football player, he was absolutely bonkers on and off the park, and he ended up as a Celtic player in the mid-2000s. Because we're talking about players who Flattered, Deceive, guys who came in with a bit of clout, a bit of reputation. Here's a reputation for you. Danish international, playing for Everton in the Premier League, who finished 4th under David Moyes in 2005, the highest Everton had finished in, probably since the last won the top flight in England. Notoriously, in the Premier League years, Everton would always finish below Liverpool, but this season in particular, they did actually finish above them. However, unfortunately for Everton, that was also the year Liverpool won the Champions League, beating Milan in that final. So Liverpool still got their way into the Champions League. But yeah, he's helped Everton get there. He then gets a move to Real Madrid. And this is Galactical time, Real Madrid, when guys like Beckham and R9 are cutting about in that team. Figo, that's the type of players that are cutting about in that Real Madrid team. And Thomas Gravesen finds his way there. Now, when the headlines came out at the start of the 06-07 season, we were linked with two pretty high-profile players. One of them was Jan Venegura Hesselink, who'd been a consistent top goal scorer in the Eredivisie. He had a really good season a couple of years before for PSV Eindhoven in the Champions League as PSV got to the semi-finals. So when I heard that we were linked with him, my first thought was, oh man, we won't get him. He's out of our league. And then around at the same time, we were also linked with Real Madrid's Thomas Gravesen. So at that point, you think, well, times are changing at Celtic. The big days are back with the signings are bringing. We're going for a guy who's had a great spell for PSV in the Champions League, bona fide goal scorer, and Thomas Gravesen, Real Madrid midfielder. Premier League, you get credit in the bank playing the Premier League. So Thomas Gravesen and both him and Venegura Hesselink sign, and both of them have very, very differing careers at Celtic, to say the least. Venegura Hesselink would go on and score a fair few goals for the club, important goals. But in his debut, we talked about it not too long ago, we did the 06-07 season. He actually scores his debut against Rangers of all the teams to score against, and this balmy lunatic that he is scores a Thomas Gravesen, this header where the ball bounces, I think it's Vateris was in goal, or it might have been McGregor, but yeah, he saves it and the ball comes up in the air and he just basically poaches it and just heads into the net. But what a way to start. You're like, oh, this guy, this guy's going to have a hell of a career at Celtic. But it quickly went downhill in a game that is always pinpointed. Gordon Strachan talked about it when he did the open goal interview when he was on with Cy Ferry, because naturally Cy Ferry was going to ask him, any Tommy Gravesen stories in? Because he asks everybody about a Tommy Gravesen story. And naturally, Gordon Strachan, being his manager, he had plenty to say. And it was the game at Old Trafford in the Champions League, Liam, where, what I said earlier on, Strachan, we're going to Old Trafford, we've got a game plan, we've got to stick to it. And everyone in their mind, me included, had this idea that Gravesen, he must be like a deep lying midfielder, the guy that sits in front of the back line and breaks up play. No, that night he was just on a mad one and he was playing anywhere he pleased. He was getting forward, he was back, he was out wide. And of course, the picture that I used for the thumbnail is the one where they're walking off, I believe, at halftime, and Gordon Strachan is literally pointing an angry finger in his face, like shouting at him, because that night the guy was just all over the shop. And yeah, he's quite the character and definitely defines that whole Flattered, Deceive guy that comes in with all this reputation. We've paid a decent bit of money for him, and what went wrong with him?
Good managers find a way to play with guys like that. You don't want to omit guys like that for the football, because you know what? He was a brilliant player and he was a game changer, and that's something about him that got the fans excited and stuff. So I don't know. That's part of Strachan being a wee doer bastard. I take that energy and fucking find a way to control it. Oh no, I'm going to send them to practice with the reserves. You give a Rolls Royce for Real Madrid and just, or Ferrari for Italy, and just you can't drive it. Just leave it in the garage.
Yeah. Too wild for you.
But it was mad. But I think good managers get the best out of that madness.
Yeah. Surely some due diligence must have been done, David, where you'd think he knows what he's getting here. You'd think that, is it just he saw the name and the club that he's attached to and just thought about, oh, we're getting a Real Madrid player. What could possibly go wrong here for what, 2.5-3 million quid, whatever it was we paid? But nothing can go wrong. But yeah, it seems like it was a shock to Gordon Strachan's system of just how how Gravesen just didn't, take to instructions no matter what. Where they say Strachan, there's a story about the whole Rarden thing where he's very much a stickler for, I give you instructions, this is what you do. But apparently that night at Old Trafford, he was just on a mad one, just going all over the place. And after that, he just got phased out of the team. And by the time we signed Paul Hartley midway through the season, Gravesen's barely getting a game at that point. But yeah, he did score 2 goals against Rangers though in his time as a Celtic player, and did score a hat-trick against St Mirren despite being a centre midfielder, which again just shows how mad he must be getting forward if he's scoring hat-tricks for centre midfield. But yeah, in terms of Strags, I say he must have known that there must have been people within the game, contacts that could have told him, by the way, he's a bit of a wild one, that Gravesen.
Well, I mean, there's all these stories coming out on podcasts, all these mad Gravesen stories, and I mean, there surely was plenty of stories being told about the guy when he was at Everton, and I mean, you see, you got David Moyes managing him. It's surely you're not telling me Gordon Strachan has not had a word with, or even David Moyes is giving a wee phone call and just saying, by the way, just so you heard any of these stories what he's like to manage, because you've got your hands full with this one, and whether maybe Gordon Strachan was completely ignorant to it or just chose to ignore that. I mean, and maybe believed in his own, management style that nobody's too hot for me to handle it. It's not a problem. He'll listen to it. I'll change it. He'll do as I tell him. I'll not be asking him and I'll be telling him and he'll do it. Well, obviously that didn't turn out to be the case, and like said, he's obviously. It's hard not to echo what Liam's already said there. A good manager. Mm-hmm. They don't want, you want to take the shackles off these kind of players and allow them, and mold them into the way you manage, because you need these guys in your, these kind of characters within your squad, But maybe Strachan just wasn't capable of taming them. And that was like you're signing a guy from Madrid. Mm-hmm. You could imagine the conversations in the boardroom. Listen, the fact that we're signing this boy from Madrid's that's a t-shirt seller right off the bat. Anyway, that'll sell season tickets. That's a headliner right there on its own. So the risk will be worth the reward almost. And obviously, that's.
As the story goes, David, apparently people think we might have signed the wrong one there. We talked about the Bangura mix-up earlier on, because Lee Carsley played alongside him at Everton, who was a centre midfielder, and he was bald, had a similar build to him, and it's like, maybe it was Carsley's the one we should have signed all along, but instead we ended up with Gravesen, and maybe that was the secret to their success at the time. Some people come in and say John Jotta's pointing out that yes, I believe he has a poker player nowadays, and also Brown Warrior says he's into property. I believe he's into that as well, real estate and a poker player. I think he lives in Las Vegas with his stripper girlfriend nowadays and living the life, just living the life.
He's our Dennis Rodman.
But the stories on Open Goal, I say, he was like, after being out on loan for a year away from Celtic, he turned up at Celtic Park one day with his pool cue, still wearing the club suit and tie and all that, and they're like, "What are you even doing here? We thought you left." He would just turn up. No, absolute madman. But yeah, on Open Goal, obviously, Cy Ferry does love a good Tommy Gravesen story. But yeah, he is definitely, I'd say, the poster boy of a player that came in, a big reputation, we paid a bit of money for, and it just went a little bit off the rails for him. But he definitely was a player, but he definitely needed the right manager to tame him. Maybe if David Moyes was the manager at the time, maybe we would get something at him, because evidently David Moyes was able to get something. But yeah, Gordon Strachan, I'd imagine a big personality like that, like Strachan would take it too well in the dressing room, was probably like, nah, you're no for me, son. But that takes us up to 2 hours, Mark. So that's us basically covered. We could have covered even more players. There's even deeper we could have went on this one. It's one of the ones I can park it and save it for another time, for another episode further down the line. Somebody suggested earlier on I should do the Celtic Dross 11 at some point. I could be a contentious one. Some people may be like, a lot of arguing in the comments, say, what are you putting him in for? So who knows? Maybe it is something I'll do down the line. But what I can tell you right now is what's happening next week. So I'm hoping to have 4 on the screen, because obviously it's another Rangers game coming. They just seem to be every 2 weeks nowadays for playing Rangers next weekend. So I always try and do something that is themed around the Rangers fixture. So next week's task, Liam, this is what I need you to do, mate. I need you to go and get your 10 best goals you've ever seen us score against Rangers. Just write them down. Don't need to tell me what they are. If Russell's on next week, I'll get him to do it. David, if you join us, if Steve was on, whoever. The mission is to put down your 10 favourite goals we've scored against Rangers. But the one rule is you can only have 1 goal per player. So there can't be multiple Chris Sutton goals or multiple Larson goals and multiple Moussa Dembele goals. You have to pick just one. And that's what we do. And we will collate the results next week. And we're going to try and put together, using the 10 that the panel, Monty's in the chat, so I'll use the word of the panel, come up with. We're going to basically pick our best goals against Rangers. It doesn't need to be a screamer of a goal. It could be just for the significance of it. It means something to you, but your 10 favourite goals we've ever scored against Rangers. And I say the only rule is it has to be, you can't have multiple goals for the same player. So that's the only thing you've got to do. So that's the homework for next week. Usually I wait till like the Thursday night and send over like Liam and Russell. This is what we're talking about tomorrow night. But no, I'm telling you the homework now. That's what you need to do. So yeah, you just pick out your 10 best goals and we will collate the results next week ahead of the final clash with Rangers of the season. Thank God. Sick of the sight of them at this point. Too many. How many is that we've played them this time? 6 times this season?
Right.
Yeah, 4 in the league, Scottish Cup and the League Cup. Jesus, man. Far too many. But yeah, that is the mission for next week. So we'll wrap up now with a bit of housekeeping. So we did do a bit of trivia earlier on. David, you were away from the screen, so I don't know if you had your headphones on and heard this.
No, sorry, I was...
Okay, so the trivia question was, there were 5 answers to this one. And it was, can you name any Celtic player who's won a golden boot in England's top 4 divisions since the Premier League era came into being, which is the 92-93 season to present day? There's 5 of them. 2 of them get mentioned tonight and amongst the dross, which may surprise you.
So from 1992 to the present day, that the golden boot winners in any of England's top
4 divisions, yeah. There's 5 former Celtic players
Pukki
that have won. Pukki is one, yes. He won it with Norwich in 2019.
Ian Wright?
No. He won it in 92 when it was still the old first division. So he has won a golden boot in England's top division, but I was going from Premier League. So I'll give you half a point there. Daryl Murphy. Yes, Daryl Murphy for Ipswich in 2015. A few years after playing for us, he ended up the top goal scorer in the English Championship with Ipswich. Daryl Murphy. My God, we didn't even give him any sort of focus tonight. That's how important he was. But yeah, the other 3 are, well, 2 of them are we've been mentioned a few times.
Oh, Sutton,
yeah. 1998 Premier League Golden Boot. He won that.
Fortuné?
No, not Fortuné. Funny enough.
He doesn't score enough goals, Liam. Come on. Does he score goals?
The other 2 are a bit trickier. There's one, I mean, to be fair, one of the players himself is don't want to use the word legend with Celtic, but a very, very good striker for us. But it's easy to forget that he got a golden boot in one of England's top 4 divisions.
Juninho?
No. Let's see if the chat are getting it. Not Brian McClure. Well, not in the Premier League era. Brian McClure might have won when it was the old first division, but not in the Premier League era. That's a good shout. John Hartson's names came up. It's not John Hartson. It's a decent shout again, though. It's a decent shout.
Henry Camara?
No, not Henry Kamara. Not surprisingly. Yeah.
I think lower league.
Did Gary Hooper not win the Golden Boot when he was in the Championship in the same year that Andy Carroll was at Newcastle?
I knew you were going to say that. No, he didn't. He was one of the top goal scorers.
But he wasn't the Golden Boot winner.
Andy Carroll, I believe, did win it that season, but he was up there with him, so he was very, very close to winning it.
Okay.
But it's not Gary Hooper. I knew his name would come up as a guess. I say Pukki, we've already got. Patrick McLaughlin, you're smashing it again, as always. I won't bring your comments up because the boys are still trying to figure it out. But Patrick McLaughlin's on the ball. He is smashing it here.
I'm trying to think players that played for bigger club. Like, can you give us a hint? Is it the last two in the Premier League or in the Championship?
Yeah, the last two. One's a Premier League one, and one is a Championship, or it was the first division at that point. It's in old money, and both of them are in the same season, 1998.
Oh God, okay.
1998.
98.
Just trying to give Celtic.
So know how you got Chris Sutton as an answer. Now you got Sutton, right? See, when Sutton left Celtic, basically the guy that came in that window and took his shirt number to the end of the season was
what's his name?
A Gordon Strachan friend. You can see him, you can envision him.
Did he play for a Premier League team?
Yes, yep. Premier League.
Dion Dublin.
Dion Dublin and Chris Sutton shared the 98 Premier League Golden Boot, and Michael Owen also shared that. So that's it. But the final one is also from the 97-98 season, and it's from the division below. And he is regarded by many as a top draw Celtic striker. So think 90s Celtic strikers that went to England.
Oh God, there was.
Oh, he went to England.
Went to England. Yes.
How long was it Celtic?
About 2.5 years.
McAvenny?
Not McAvenny. No, that was a wee bit too. His would be the 80s. He was Dutch.
Oh, all right. Oh, that makes it a bit easier. Pierre van Hooijdonk.
Pierre van Hooijdonk for Nottingham Forest. So
the
five answers were Chris Sutton and Dion Dublin, 1998 for Blackburn and Coventry. They shared the Premier League Golden Boot. Van Hooijdonk shared the Golden Boot in the Championship, or Division 1 at the time, for Nottingham Forest. He scored like 29 goals. And yeah, the two shocking ones who were mentioned tonight at some point, Teemu Pukki and Daryl Murphy. I know Ian Wright's names came up again, but as I emphasise, Ian Wright did win a Golden Boot in 92, and it was the old First Division before it became the Premier League year. So I'll give you half a point for that if you said Ian Wright. But that's
Daryl Murphy, when he went down there, he tore up. Remember, I couldn't believe it when you started seeing him banging the goals at Ipswich, and was at Sunderland at one point, or did we sign him for Sunderland?
We signed him for Sunderland, but
remember that Maisie goal, the Maisie run he scored, that unbelievable goal. Oh, what a goal, man!
Although man, right, saying see that season he did bang in the goals. Was there not a bit of Tavernier about it? A lot of penalties. I feel like it was penalties because he took a couple of penalties for us when he played. I think he was actually a bit of a penalty merchant. He was quite good at striking one. But I feel like that year he did top the Championship goal, but I feel there was a lot of penalty kicks in there. But
do a Daryl Murphy penalty taker now. Jeez,
we could actually be fair. Aaron Moyes know on the park regularly enough for us to trust him with it. And the final thing I'm going to check is the wee poll that I put up at the start. 70 votes have been on it. So I picked 3 players from that collection of rather dross strikers over that period. We kept signing for £1 million to £3 million. I picked Bayo, Amido Balde, Mo Bangura, and of course Ura was an option. Been plenty of stuff coming up in the others, but Mo Bangura is the outright winner of that one with 43% of the vote. Amido Balde second to 26%, and Bayo 17%, and Ura was 14%. So that wraps that up, guys. It's been a fun show again. Say next week we'll be doing top 10 goals against Rangers. So the homework is really, really simple on that one. Just pick your favourite 10 goals for against the old enemy, and we will talk about them next week. And in terms of what else is coming up on the bus this weekend, obviously we've got a rather big game coming up this weekend. We could be crowned champions. It's the only coronation everyone should be talking about this weekend. Celtic getting coronated as champions 2 in a row. Went through Tynecastle Obviously, now we get Stephen Naismith as manager, so I can't think of anything better than on Sunday to see Stephen Naismith's Cooten raging that we just won the league on their park. That would make me a very, very happy man. Of course, PMP will be on, Sunday Blair will be on beforehand. Saturday, I don't know, there might be a side show. It's one of these things where if something pops up, you'll be notified as long as you have subscribed. You've hit that bell notification. Other than that, I think we've covered everything. Anything else you guys wish to say before we head off, or we all good?
Yeah, I think we're all good.
We're all good. We're all good. So another fun show, guys, and all that needs to be said now is, come on, Celtic, come on, get the job done. We want to be talking about it on Sunday evening. Champions once again. So, guys, we'll catch you all later. Thanks for watching and enjoy your weekend.
Cheerio.
You've all that stuff at the start. You know, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.
All right, Phil.